What's up, YouTube? I'm Chuck the Liberty Geek, and welcome back to another episode of, well, Liberty Geek. Today, we got a pretty special topic, but first, I got three guests for this special topic. Lou, let's start with you. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Assuming he's there. He seems to be lagging a bit. We can't hear you, Lou, which is really weird because I can't hear you, Lou. So we'll start with the other two guests. Things happen. Varys Victor, Mr. Too Many Last Word Names to Count. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, I am the coolest person you'll ever meet. I am Varys the Lassonera of Libertarian Gaming. I do the website stuff. Stetson does the physical stuff. I do the please work stuff. I write and yeah.
All right, go ahead and introduce yourself, Stetson, since he just named you by name.
I am Stetson. I'm with Libertarian Gaming. I do all of the hardware for the servers, and I run the maintenance scripts and all of that. So I do all of the physical stuff. I'm not very good at writing. I don't think there's very many articles on the website from me. It takes a while for me to put one out there. But yeah, so I run all of the maintenance, and then Varys runs all of the technical. So.
All right, and Lou has rejoined the call. So, Lou, let's see if we can hear you this time.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, this is Lou from the Freedom Fiends radio show, syndicated by the Genesis Communications Network, also syndicated on the Liberty Radio Network, a couple of micro stations, and an unknown number of pirate stations. And I will also be hosting the upcoming Art of Not Being Governed podcast, which should be starting hopefully in the next couple weeks.
Hell yeah. And as you guys know, I am Chuck the Liberty Geek. I am also now affiliated with Libertarian Gaming as one of the Facebook admins, as well as one of the contributors to the website. Not that you know it because I haven't put anything out yet. However, I do have something cool in store, so keep watching. That's it. That's all I'm going to tease. Also, Adam Bratt, that is, and I will also be doing a show for Libertarian Gaming in the future, so keep an eye on that as well. But today's topic is net neutrality. So, what is it exactly? Well, it means different things to different people. To some people, it means that we keep the internet open and free, and nobody can mess with the internet for profit, right? But there's a darker side to that, which a lot of people seem to be ignoring. And as a techie myself, or as a nerd myself, it's kind of disturbing now how we're ignoring this other half of net neutrality. Varys, what is this other half of net neutrality that seems to be overlooked?
Dark government overreach.
There you go. And what happens when we have dark government overreach? The boogeyman comes and kills us. No, but
Suddenly.
Yeah, or suddenly, if you're in Amarillo, Texas, sudden link. But it's a little bit more than that. So, I first heard about this issue when I was still a minarchist jumping to an anarchist. I was watching The Tech, which is done by a crew called Tech Syndicate, and they were all like, you should be pro net neutrality. And the way that I was told was basically there was a fight going on between companies like Netflix and YouTube, in essence Google, since Google is YouTube, that these companies were clogging up the internet because they were so popular, and they were clogging up the network traffic of these big ISPs that we have here in North America by the state-sponsored oligarchy. Let's give a little Ron Paul to that. Not that you can tell it's a Ron Paul mug anymore. But in the end, Netflix and what happened was that companies like AT&T and Comcast wanted to start charging Netflix and Google for these premium high priority lanes in their servers to make sure that anyone using these servers would get proper speeds and not be gunked up with the rest of the internet traffic. However, Netflix and Google didn't want to pay, so they started this campaign to, get people to want to get the FCC involved and make sure that the companies couldn't do this because we should treat the internet like a public utility. Lou, does that sound about right to you? And do you have anything else you want to add to it?
If you love the Healthcare Neutrality Act, you're going to love the Affordable Internet Act. If you like your modem, you can keep it. Yeah, we keep getting these promises of we're going to make everything fair, we're going to make everything so much better, and what I suspect is going to happen is the same thing that every time government not overreaches, just reaches into a sector to regulate it, the larger companies, which could be maybe Comcast or maybe some of the other big ones, are just going to get cartelized, and they're going to get a whole lot bigger. It's going to strangle out the smaller competitors. There will probably be numerous barriers to entry placed on new actors entering the market, which is going to cartelize the big ones even more. It'll make it more cost prohibitive for new people to enter the market. And I personally think that all this stuff can be solved by abolishing government.
I agree. One of the things that makes this issue really complicated is the ISPs already claim that they're private companies, but government has given them money to upgrade the infrastructure, tax money to upgrade the infrastructure. Now, they haven't done that, which, right. So according to that logic, the statists say that is why that government should be able to intervene on this subject. Stetson, what do you think?
Well, I mean, when I thought of net neutrality kind of in the same fashion that you did, is that we needed to get corporatism out of the internet, and really corporatism is the integration of government and business. So from there, if you're going to say if we're going to regulate it like a utility, that's saying the government is going to regulate your internet, and thus you're going deeper into the corporatism hole. But I mean, what I like to bring people to about net neutrality is I said, do you think your electric bill, your propane bill, do you think that's fair? And most of the people will be like, no, it's not fair. It's actually very bad. And I'm like, why would you want to do that to your internet?
Internet's already expensive enough here, isn't it?
Exactly, and just making it a government-regulated utility is going to make it worse, just like it did with the electric, telephone, all of those types of utilities. When the government got involved, prices went higher.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it does suck that the government gave the ISPs this money to upgrade their infrastructure and they didn't. But on the other hand, I don't think that means that we should have government get in there and classify them as utilities, because as Stetson said, those prices are already ridiculous as it is. And as Lou pointed out, about ISPs already is already true. Is nearly impossible for a startup company to get involved as an ISP, just because of the way the ISP oligarchy works in North America. I mean, these are basically state-protected monopolies in local areas, on top of them going in their secret backdoor meetings and saying, look, we won't stomp on you here if you don't stomp on us there. We'll try to keep our prices consistent so there's no real competition between us, which is fine and dandy. Companies should be allowed to cooperate as they want, but when other companies can't get in on the market because the government basically protects these monopolies, no one can go against these big companies and not cooperate with their prices and lower these prices. And Varys, is there a solution to this? Let's say we can't abolish government. We want to, but let's pretend right now we can't. What's the solution then?
Well, I'd say to take advantage of peer-to-peer technology, which seems to be getting better and better. I don't know if you heard of that cell phone antenna you can get, basically, that makes it so you can very easily go peer-to-peer. I don't know how it's constructed, but more and more of that technology is emerging because people are fed up with cell phone companies, internet companies, and I'm pretty sure if we just wait out long enough, they'll just be network cards, maybe even powerful enough to go computer to computer, just long distances, and you won't need any sort of ISP. I mean, they're basically forcing the market to phase themselves out.
So, in that case, Lou, let's say we phase out these ISPs then. How far can the liberty movement go off of that? And is that real net neutrality then? Going peer to peer? Alright. We can't hear you again, Lou. Dun dun dun. We can't hear you. You might need to restart. Alright, he's going to restart the call. So I'll pass the question on to you, Stetson, as a hardware guy and as a Mac guy, because those two clearly are in common. What's the answer to the question?
I think peer-to-peer technology is a little bit farther down the road. And unfortunately, we don't have the time to sit here and wait for technology to develop. I mean, the peer-to-peer answer is just it's great, and technology does move fast enough to keep up with the needs of demand. But my thought would be is at this point, you have to pick the lesser of two evils. If you keep the government out of it, that means technologies like peer-to-peer are more likely to grow than if they are utilities. You don't hear people, saying, you know what I want to do? I want to go out throughout America and redo the whole electrical grid. And everyone knows in America that it's been awful. Like, it's on the brink of disaster. Like, one bad event, and even an electrician would tell you that after just one bad event, we could have no power to half of California because it's just so bad. It's been left there for so long. But there's no entrepreneurship. There's no innovation because, well, the government takes care of it. There's no point.
So, now you're back, Lou. What is your solution to this issue?
Well, getting government involved is not going to do anything to help. As a matter of fact, it's going to hinder it greatly. As far as leaving it alone, because you already have this corporatist system that is in place, that's going to be detrimental also. I don't know how maybe like a wireless mesh network or something like that will be able to alleviate the problem. But if you go back to when cable television and everything was all brand new and it was going across America, and I'm old enough to really remember that, each city had one provider that was offering service in that city, and the providers got an exclusive contract with the city, and nobody else could come in. And then eventually it kind of lightened up a little bit, and then you had like satellite was able to come in, and you might have one or two, maybe even three providers in the city. But by keeping these people out, that is what caused this problem. There is no real competition in there, and there's a article by Thomas J. DiLorenzo. I believe it's called the Myth of Natural Monopoly, and it talks about public utilities like water, electricity, and all that other stuff in the early 20th century, and how you actually had real competition amongst these utility companies here in America. I mean, multiple companies providing electricity to New York City and Chicago and all these other places. And so it's not that it's impossible for it to be done. It's just so much easier for people to say, oh, government decide who the winner is going to be, and we'll just all go ahead and lose happily.
It is a real shame because I do feel like that really the answer to this net neutrality problem, as a lot of techies see it, is in fact actually competition, because like I said, if we had more competition, more companies would try to say, look, the internet traffic might be screwed up, but we'll never ever charge the customer or the other companies for these extra lanes, and then people are going to want to go to them because suddenly they have the better business practices, and the big companies know that. So I guess it comes down to what? I mean,
Me personally, I look at this particular situation as every other situation. It has to get so damn horrible that everybody says I've had enough with government intervention. You know, you look at the wars and stuff that's going on, and people are realizing that the war party is the same party. It doesn't matter who's in charge. You look at the bailouts, you look at everything else. There is absolutely no difference between the parties. So essentially you have government following this big giant trend, and because so much stuff is happening now where in the past I believe it was probably more spread out over time and it didn't have such a great impact. I mean, I didn't think about these things 20, 30 years ago. I mean, it didn't really register to me. But with what's going on now, the healthcare takeover, the internet takeover, and everything else, people are just getting sick of it. I mean, it is like there's a massive awakening. So when government becomes intolerable, people will go away from government. Or in simpler terms, when the demand for liberty exceeds the demand for the state, then the state will die.
so Varys, is it fair to say that what people think is net neutrality is more just big corporations going to government to try to make sure that the big corporations win again?
Well, yes, but I also want to bring up a point that would these fast lines be such a bad thing?
No, I don't
I
think
mean,
so.
I mean, like for example, with Suddenlink, we have terrible Suddenlink, and we get a horrible service, and especially from things like Steam and other things. I mean, I know I do. So if they were to do that, then I mean, yeah, if say Steam doesn't like that, then they say, okay, well, we just won't do business with you. Our website won't be accessible by your customers. Then they're going to hurt a lot, and they'll find a way to fix it. So I think that ending net neutrality actually allows negotiations to start taking place between companies, and that allows evolution, I guess.
But Varys, I've heard. Let me play the average person here who doesn't quite understand it. But Varys, those companies will pass the costs on to the customer, and that's bad.
Well, then I won't do business with those companies, and I'm sure a lot of people won't either, and they'll hurt.
Let me play devil's advocate on this. Should you pay more for a large pizza than if you purchase a small pizza?
Subjective value, but sure.
Yeah, well, you are getting more out of it. So, if like let's say a Netflix or something like that requires much more bandwidth, and we go by the philosophy of we pay according to what we use, then is it really so unreasonable to pay a little bit more for getting more?
Now, I do want to make a concession here, because I was net ragging on Netflix earlier, but to be fair, Netflix did try to alleviate this problem with the ISPs, and they said, look, we understand that Netflix is being a pain in your ass. We are willing to put, free of charge to you, we are willing to put caching servers on our bill in your buildings so that our traffic for like 80% of our movies will not affect your traffic. And the ISPs said, and most of the big ones said no. Now, does that mean Netflix should go running and kicking and screaming to the government? Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. Those companies have a right to say no. But
yeah, nobody should ever go running and kicking and screaming to the government.
Technically, I mean, if I had been in Netflix position, I would have been like, okay, well, we can just not allow it on your servers at all and see what happens and do a whole Viacom thing like Viacom did this Suddenlink and, had special promotions with Dish and just go that way.
yeah, and I think the issue is I think we're not. I would say vote with your wallet, but in a lot of areas, it's not easy to vote with your wallet. You either have the big guy, Comcast, Verizon, or you
Suddenly.
have Suddenlink, or you have the crappy guy, which is like DSL or satellite internet, which I don't know if any of you have had the pleasure of using satellite internet. I have. Good luck watching Netflix on anything over like 320p. It's pretty bad. So, but
The Sunlink
still,
standard.
yeah. So I guess the issue is then, is anyone in the wrong here? I mean, let's pretend that Netflix hadn't started this campaign for FCC.
Hold on, I need to interrupt you here, Chuck, and say
Uh-oh.
that we've had net neutrality for a while. It's nothing new or pending. It's something that's been going on.
It's called a hands-off. It's called a hands-off regulation of the internet, and by hands-off regulation, that means no regulation, unless you count the seizure of like all 50 Silk Road websites
and the internet tax.
Yeah, but
and the way that they handle net neutrality, which is still currently in place.
One thing that I would like to point out is the guy Wheeler that's in charge of the FCC, who would be in charge of net neutrality and regulating the internet, spent a good deal of his career as a lobbyist for the cable telecom industry.
Yes.
So are we really expecting an industry insider to go in there and say, well, forget the people that I worked for all these years. I'm going to make sure that the common man is taken care of.
Well, and there's... Oh, go ahead, Stetson.
I was like, that's where kind of corporatism comes in. I mean, you never hear about the head of the Treasury of the United States or the head of the Fed coming from like some po-down bank in downtown Chicago. It's always, oh, they were the head of Merrill Lynch, they were the head of Morgan Stanley, they were head of the, of this financial institution, and then they have that financial institution benefit, and that's how that's how corporatism is going to work, unfortunately.
Well, there's a flip side to that coin, though. Do you want the guy that comes from Podunk Bank that's never seen more than $1 million at one time? I mean, your two choices for government regulators are industry experts and insiders, which leads to regulatory capture. And your other option is academics, bureaucrats, and politicians that have never worked inside of the industry or have little to no experience, and therefore they can't effectively regulate it. So your choices are evil and stupid. Take your pick.
I mean, there's also the issue with Wheeler in that he worked for the, cable industry. He didn't work for, companies like Netflix. Admittedly, these companies are effing scared of YouTube and Netflix, and obviously they should be, because
people like them.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I do think that there is an issue here that Netflix doesn't realize, that if Wheeler is the person to regulate the internet, I'm pretty sure Netflix is going to have a pretty hard time with the FCC, just because Netflix isn't in on that crew. So.
Well, here's something else. Recently, I guess a number of the large health insurance companies have come out, and they don't want Obamacare to be abolished or taken down or anything like that, because now they have all these supposedly guaranteed customers, not to mention the tax subsidies to make sure that they get paid. The solution to this is competition. I've heard people talk about how Google would like to go and put Google fiber optics out in different areas, but they've been stomped out by government regulators.
Yep. There's a million examples of that.
Yeah. So when you have this lack of competition, which net neutrality will bring even less competition than before, you're going to get the same problems. So I'm always against darn near anything government wants to do, because I'm a no government man. But just looking at the history of regulation to protect the consumer, and the consumer getting the shaft on a regular basis, how in the hell could I support this? You don't even have to be a full-blown economist to know what's going to come out of this.
And it's scary because, there was a time, I'm really ashamed to admit this, but when I was still a minarchist, because like I said, I was barely jumping into the anarchy train when I first heard about this a long time ago. I was kind of sort of there, I was kind of not there. I was kind of debating it, but there was a time where I was like, net neutrality sounds good. And now I look back at myself and I'm like, what a idiot I was, I mean, as Seamus Coughlin put it, his video kind of sparked me into doing this episode. I'll post a link in the description about the cartoon he made. I used to be for it, and then I actually researched it and realized what a bad idea it would be. And this is coming from someone who is also becoming an anarchist. So, oops. I mean, but we all make mistakes, right, Varys?
Right.
What? Why'd you single me out?
I don't know. It
What?
just seemed like a good idea at the time. I don't know.
When I think of the number of times that I put faith in government to solve a problem, I feel like Charlie Brown trying to hold the foot or trying to kick the football while Lucy holds it.
If you vote one more time, this will be the time things change, Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Stetson, you've been. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Lou. I didn't know you were not.
All right, there's something else that we have to consider here, and I will admit that I haven't read any proposed legislation, or anything like that on net neutrality, so I don't know what's in the bill, and I don't want to see them pass it so I can find out what's in it. I'm not really concerned about what is written down in there. I'm really concerned about how it's going to be interpreted, because if you look at the fact that a guy can grow wheat on his own property for his own personal use, and the Supreme Court can call it interstate commerce because it can have an impact on interstate commerce, then what the hell do you think is going to come out of the net neutrality and all this other nonsense?
Censorship. That's the first thing I think of. Easily.
Censorship, taxes, because we know that government is basically a degenerate beggar, always with its hand out looking for more money because it can't afford to do all the crap that it wants to do.
No, actually, Lou, it's a beggar with a gun.
Yeah. And also, most beggars will say thank you and leave you alone after they get some money.
God bless you. You know, Stetson, you've been awfully quiet. There's got to be something running through that Steve Jobs like mind of yours.
Well, it's just that with net neutrality, I kind of think of it as what would happen to like our website. We run it from a server that's located in my house. If you start getting government regulation, and there may not be like websites like this that come out and are just run from people's garages or basements, just off of old hardware they've left in there because, well, you haven't gotten it approved, you haven't gotten a license, you haven't gotten a permit, you haven't paid the taxes, you haven't told the government, you haven't gotten the permission slip, you didn't go to the Department of Homeland Security, So the way that I think of it is like eventually if we let them regulate it enough, which they will, and Lou brought up a good point. There's no such thing as strict constitutionalism. It's always, well, how can we make, they get all of these words and they write down all of this document and then they're like, okay, well, how can we comply that to make it fit anything we want? And that's how it's going to occur.
All right,
and the same thing's been done with the Constitution. That thing's so full of weasel words and clauses that damn near anything can happen.
You have a right to bear arms. Unless you actually want to bear arms, then screw you.
See, what they actually meant in bear arms is you can cut off the arms of a bear and use them, and that's all you get. You have the right to bear arms.
And where exactly did these bear arms come from? But Stetson, since you've been so quiet, I'm going to pick on you for this question. And I want you to think hard about this answer because I think a lot of people don't understand it. What is the worst case Let's pretend we're politicians, okay? What is the worst case scenario that this net neutrality can bring out? The worst case scenario.
The worst case scenario?
Yes.
Well, it always goes to terrorism. That's the first thing they go to. Well, we need to stop this person in their basement from posting words about talking about how they don't like us because that will teach children to not like the government, which will cause them to fly planes into big buildings.
9/11, ISIS, dirty bomb.
And it will go to the point, and I love how Barris had told me this. I was like, I'm going to watch the Republican and the Democrat gubernatorial debate in Texas. And he was like, well, this is how it's going to go. My feels, my country, but my feels, my country. And so, and that's basically how they use it. That's how they're going to use this. It's like, well, we can already do this, but we need to make sure that no one's out there teaching our children on the internet to hate America. And you fly planes into buildings, and it's going to become to where it's just so obscure and the language and the verbiage that you have to meet the criteria, everyone's guilty of it if they start disliking you.
Eventually we'll
You
need some
forgot to
sort of
mention.
tax step.
You forgot to mention that they have to out Jesus each other too.
Oh yes, my fields, my country, but my Bible.
Oh boy.
But my Bible.
But my Bible says something different than your Bible.
My Bible's bigger.
Actually, my Bible is a little bit bigger. So.
My Bible has a bayonet attached to it, so. But is there a? All right, Varys. Tentatively, what is the best case scenario for this then? That it just goes under the rug and we just continue life as it normally goes?
I mean, really, how I expect this to go is just the same old as we're getting now. We're going to have the same terrible ISPs. Suddenlink's going to be Suddenlink. We're only going to be able to get Suddenlink, and it's just going to suck. Websites are going to get slower as the infrastructure gets older and worse, and it's just going to be the same old, but worse.
Man, you don't know how fast I would buy Google Fiber. Google, if you're listening, Google, if you're listening,
Oh, yes.
if you're listening, I need a little love. I would say bring it to Detroit, but I won't be here in a few months, so bring it to where I'm moving. Let Lou suffer because he's gonna stay in Michigan. That's his fault. Man, Lou, that snow. Holy, damn, it's too early for this.
Hey, if you don't like snowstorms, move to Somalia.
Yeah, I've been thinking about it. Also,
Goddamn pirate.
yeah. Before we go, I would also like to thank the head admins for Libertarian Gaming for being here, and I am also now a part of Libertarian Gaming. I will put a link in the description for the website for Libertarian Gaming where I will start my new show with Adam there sooner. Also, Adam, every time you keep pimping Libertarian Gaming, I just want you to remember I was an admin first and not you. All right, so let's get last words from our gracious guest here, Lou from Freedom Fiend. Take it away. Last comments.
I have no real fears from the things that I can imagine them doing. It's the innovations that they come up with that I can't think of that scare the shit out of me.
Innovations, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Stetson. Last words.
With the Net Neutrality Act, last words I would say is, if you don't like your electric and your gas bill, how would you like your internet bill to be the same?
And to be treated the same as the rest of the utilities.
Exactly.
Varys?
Well, service could definitely become kind of a thing like guns with the NFA, that you'll need a tax stamp or this or that if you want to do a certain thing or certain other things. So keep the government out.
And my last thought is, I know there's a lot of people who claim to be nerds out there calling for FCC regulation of the internet, but I think they just don't understand. So I hope you take this point into consideration, guys. I think we all brought up good points today, especially Lou. Thank you so much. I brought this on you at last minute, and you still graciously showed up. We were going to have 2 other guests today, but, God damn them for having lives. Or not having lives in Adam's case, because screw you, Adam. No, I'm just kidding. 16-hour shift is not easy. Not easy. So, this is Chuck the Liberty Geek, guys. Let's talk some anarchy next time when we do Gamergate again. Oh boy. See you guys next time.